Testing. 1, 2, 3.
In 1964, while most American families were gathering around their television sets to watch the wholesome adventures of the Cleavers or the Nelsons, CBS decided to invite a very different kind of family into living rooms across the nation. A family where Dad was a reanimated corpse with bolts in his neck, Mom was a vampire, and Grandpa could transform into a bat at will. Yet somehow, beneath the grease paint, prosthetics, and fangs, the Munsters would become one of television's most relatable families. The early 1960s was a peculiar moment in American pop culture. The Universal monster movies that had terrified previous generations were now playing in syndication as late-night creature features, while the clean-cut family sitcom reigned supreme in primetime.
Please, Grandpa?
The Munsters brilliantly capitalized on both trends, creating a monster family that was, ironically, more functional than most of their normal counterparts on television. When CBS executives greenlit the series, they were taking a calculated risk. ABC had just launched The Addams Family, another macabre clan with a similar premise. But where the Addams were wealthy, eccentric, and proudly odd, the Munsters were working-class monsters trying their best to fit into suburban America. The contrast couldn't have been more perfect, and a friendly rivalry was born that continues among fans to this day. Shot in gorgeous black and white on the Universal backlot, a practical necessity that doubled as a stylistic homage to the monster films that inspired it. The Munsters wasn't just playing monster dress-up. Beneath its creature feature aesthetics was a surprisingly progressive show about outsiders who saw themselves as completely normal, while the world around them struggled to accept their differences. So grab your dragster keys, mix up some batwing soup, and join me as we explore how a family of monsters became one of television's most human creations, and why, 6 decades later, 1313 Mockingbird Lane remains an address that popular culture can't seem to forget. The Munsters' most memorable scenes often revolved around Herman's childlike clumsiness despite his monstrous strength, Grandpa's supernatural mishaps, and the family's bewilderment at how the outside world perceived them. One standout sequence features Herman destroying their living room in excitement over a minor windfall, a perfect blend of physical comedy and monster mayhem that became the show's signature style. What made these moments work wasn't just the gags, but the technical achievements behind them. Shot in sumptuous black and white, the Munsters deliberately evoked the look and feel of Universal's classic monster films, a choice that was both practical and artistic. The stark contrasts and shadows didn't just hide makeup seams. They created a visual language connecting the show to horror film history while serving the comedy. Behind every monster was a marvel of practical effects. Fred Gwynne endured 3 hours of makeup application daily to transform into Herman Munster. His platform boots added 4 inches to his already impressive 6 feet 5 inches frame, creating a lumbering giant whose awkward movements were partly by design and partly due to the restrictive costume. Makeup artist Carl Silvera deserves immense credit for creating a Frankenstein-inspired look distinctive enough to avoid copyright issues with Universal's monster properties, despite being filmed on Universal's own lot. The Munster Mansion itself was a technical triumph. Located on Colonial Street on the Universal backlot, later renamed Wisteria Lane for Desperate Housewives, the exterior was transformed from a typical suburban home into a decrepit Victorian masterpiece. Inside, the set designers created a Gothic wonderland of cobwebs, dust, and mechanical contraptions. The staircase that opened to let Spot the Dragon out from underneath was an engineering feat for weekly television, requiring careful timing and coordination between actors and crew. Budget constraints led to ingenious solutions. Many props were repurposed from Universal's monster movie warehouse, creating authentic connections to the films that inspired the series. The famous Munster coach, a modified hearse that served as the family car, was designed by George Barris, creator of the 1966 Batmobile, and cobbled together from 3 Model T bodies, becoming one of television's most recognizable vehicles despite its modest budget origins. Filming a show with this many practical effects created weekly challenges. Episodes featuring Grandpa's magic often required multiple takes and camera tricks to create the illusion of transformation. In an era before CGI, disappearing acts were accomplished through careful editing, trapdoors, and well-timed lighting changes. These technical limitations didn't constrain the show. They enhanced its charming, handcrafted quality that modern reproductions have struggled to recapture. What truly set the Munsters apart technically was its masterful sound design, an element often overlooked in discussions of the show. The creaking doors, thunderclaps, and especially the distinctive clanking sound when Herman walked gave the series its immersive atmosphere. This sonic landscape was created by sound engineers who had previously worked on Universal's horror films, bringing authentic monster movie audio techniques to television. Particularly impressive was the Munster doorbell, an elaborate sequence of organ notes played on a genuine church organ, followed by screams and clanking chains, a sonic gag that became one of television's most recognizable audio signatures. The show's cinematography employed techniques rarely seen in sitcoms of the era. Directors frequently utilized dramatic angles and lighting effects drawn from German expressionist cinema, the same visual language that had influenced the original Universal monster films. Low-angle shots of Herman emphasized his imposing stature, while high-angle perspectives were employed during moments when the character felt defeated or diminished. This sophisticated visual approach elevated the Munsters above typical sitcom staging, creating a hybrid of horror film aesthetics and comedy timing. Another remarkable technical achievement was the special makeup effects for the show's many guest stars. Each week, new characters would visit the Munster home, often requiring their own monster transformations. The makeup department developed techniques to quickly transform day players into werewolves, vampires, or other creatures. Processes that would typically take hours for feature films had to be accomplished within the tight schedule and budget of television production. These efficient techniques would later influence how special effects makeup was approached in television for decades to come. The chemistry of the Munsters ensemble cast transformed what could have been a one-note monster parody into a show with genuine heart. Fred Gwynne's portrayal of Herman Munster stands as one of television's great physical comedy performances. Despite being buried under 40 pounds of makeup and costume, Gwynne brought remarkable expressiveness to Herman. His childlike enthusiasm and sensitivity, especially in scenes where Herman's feelings were hurt by the outside world's rejection, created a Frankenstein's monster who was more teddy bear than terror. Gwynne's background in classical theater, he was a Harvard graduate with Shakespearean training, allowed him to find the perfect balance between broad comedy and subtle emotion. Yvonne DiCarlo's casting as Lily Munster represented one of television's most interesting career transitions. DiCarlo had been a legitimate Hollywood star in films like The Ten Commandments and Criss-Cross, but by the early 1960s, leading roles for women over 40 were scarce. While some might have seen a monster sitcom as a step down, DiCarlo embraced Lily with elegant grace, creating a vampire housewife who was simultaneously domestic and exotic. Her chemistry with Gwynne anchored the show's emotional core, particularly in scenes where they reminisced about their courtship in the old country. Perhaps the most underrated performance came from Al Lewis as Grandpa. A veteran stage actor with perfect comic timing, Lewis brought a mischievous energy to Grandpa's mad scientist experiments and supernatural abilities. The episodes centering on his laboratory disasters or misguided attempts to help the family through magic provided some of the show's most beloved storylines. Lewis and Gwynne had previously worked together on Car 54, Where Are You? Zrina and their established rapport created an instantly believable father-in-law, son-in-law dynamic that drove many episodes. One of the show's most interesting casting stories involved the role of Marilyn, the ugly duckling normal niece, who lived with the family. The part was originally played by Beverly Owen, who appeared in the first 13 episodes before leaving the show to get married. Pat Priest took over the role so seamlessly that many casual viewers never noticed the switch. The Marilyn character served a crucial narrative purpose as the bridge between the monster family and the normal world, while ironically being considered the unattractive oddity by her loving but clueless relatives. The most memorable scenes often played with this reversed perspective on normalcy. When Herman and Lily visited Eddie's school concerned about his werewolf abilities not developing properly, or when the family comforted Marilyn after another boyfriend fled in terror, the show found its emotional resonance. By making the monsters the sympathetic protagonists who couldn't understand why others feared them, the Munsters offered a surprisingly progressive message about acceptance and family solidarity, wrapped in monster makeup and sight gags. When the Munsters first lurched onto television screens in September 1964, critical reaction was decidedly mixed. Variety dismissed it as a one-joke situation that couldn't possibly sustain itself, while other reviewers questioned whether American audiences were ready for monsters as protagonists in a family sitcom. These initial doubts were quickly dispelled as the show climbed in the ratings, eventually reaching the top 20 programs by mid-season. Audience letters revealed that children were especially drawn to the monsters' antics, while parents appreciated the show's wholesome family values hidden beneath the macabre exterior. The series evolved significantly during its two-season run. Early episodes leaned heavily on Monster of the Week plots, where Herman or Grandpa would encounter normal humans with predictably chaotic results. As viewers became familiar with the characters, the writers began crafting more nuanced stories, exploring the family dynamics. By the second season, episodes like Herman's Child Psychology and Underground Munster demonstrated a growing confidence in using the monster premise to explore genuine family issues. One controversial aspect of the Munsters that's rarely discussed today was its competition with ABC's The Addams Family, which debuted the same week in 1964. Nielsen ratings showed the two monster families constantly battling for viewership, with the Munsters usually maintaining a slight edge. CBS executives would regularly demand script changes to differentiate their show from the competition, leading to the Munsters emphasizing Herman's workplace struggles and Eddie's school problems, elements absent from the Addams family's more insular world. A fascinating hidden detail about the series involves its sudden cancellation. Despite solid ratings, CBS abruptly ended the show after just 70 episodes as the network transitioned to all-color programming in 1966. The black and white aesthetic that had served the Munsters so perfectly had become its downfall. Fred Gwynne later revealed in interviews that test footage was shot for a color version, but Herman's green makeup looked positively sickly in color, and the producers couldn't reconcile the classic monster movie look with color broadcasting demands. Another little-known production secret involves the Munster Mansion set. Eagle-eyed viewers might notice that the same house was used in Desperate Housewives decades later, though significantly remodeled. The original Munsters set designers created a special trapdoor beneath the main staircase for Spot, the family's pet dragon who lived under the stairs. This elaborate mechanism remained hidden within the structure for years, occasionally causing headaches for later productions using the house. Perhaps the most interesting evolution in the Munsters' reception came decades after its cancellation. As the show entered syndication in the 1970s and 80s, new generations discovered it without the context of its original competition with the Addams Family. This allowed the Munsters to be appreciated on its own merits, with many television historians now recognizing it as an important bridge between the saccharine family sitcoms of the 1950s and the more socially conscious family shows that would emerge in the 1970s. 6 decades after the Munster family first welcomed viewers into their cobweb-covered home, their cultural footprint remains surprisingly substantial. The show's legacy extends far beyond its brief original run, influencing generations of creators and resonating with audiences who weren't even born when it first aired. The Munsters pioneered what would become a prolific subgenre of monster family entertainment. Shows like The Addams Family, its contemporary rival, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and even elements of The Simpsons, particularly their Halloween specials, owe a debt to the way the Munsters normalized the supernatural within a family sitcom format. More recently, shows like What We Do in the Shadows continue the tradition of finding humor in monsters attempting to navigate everyday life, a concept the Munsters helped establish as television territory. The series has inspired numerous revival attempts, though none have captured the magic of the original. The 1981 TV movie, The Munsters' Revenge, reunited most of the original cast, while The Munsters Today, 1988 to 1991, reimagined the family waking up after decades of suspended animation. Rob Zombie's 2022 film adaptation, The Munsters, demonstrates that Hollywood still sees value in the concept, even if critics and audiences have been divided on these various reinterpretations. The fact that each generation receives its own version of the Munsters speaks to the resilience of the concept. What makes the Munsters particularly relevant today is its subtle but unmistakable commentary on prejudice and acceptance. When Herman Munster delivered his famous speech to Eddie about character being more important than appearance, "The lesson I want you to learn is it doesn't matter what you look like. You can be tall or short or fat or thin or ugly or handsome like your father, or you can be black or yellow or white. It doesn't matter. What matters is the size of your heart and the strength of your character." He was articulating a message that remains powerfully relevant. This clip regularly resurfaces on social media during times of social division, proving that sometimes the most profound messages come from unexpected sources. The show's portrayal of a marginalized family who see themselves as normal while society views them as monstrous has taken on new layers of meaning in contemporary discussions about inclusion and diversity. What was played primarily for laughs in 1964 now reads as a surprisingly nuanced allegory about otherness and belonging. The Munsters were, in essence, immigrants from the old country, trying to assimilate into American suburban life while maintaining their cultural identity, a narrative that resonates with many Americans' experiences. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Munsters is how it demonstrated that family values transcend appearance. Beneath the gothic trappings and monster makeup was a loving family that supported each other unconditionally. Herman and Lily's devotion to each other, their concern for Eddie's education, and their protection of Marilyn represented traditional family values packaged in a non-traditional aesthetic. This juxtaposition helped viewers question superficial judgments and recognize that family bonds can exist in many forms. As we look back at 1313 Mockingbird Lane from today's perspective, The Munsters stands as a testament to television's power to normalize the other through humor and heart. In a world that still struggles with accepting difference, perhaps we could all benefit from seeing ourselves through the Munsters' perspective, where being different isn't just okay, it's something to celebrate. So what do you think? Are you Team Munsters or Team Addams Family? Drop a comment below with your favorite Munster moment, and subscribe for more deep dives into classic television that shaped our culture.